I actually had a question for you that honestly perfectly segued in what we were talking about. And I actually
Okay,
wrote
yeah.
this down. I'll go off the top of my head, but uh, I'm curious as like since I'm a content creator and because I've been covering games now since 2018 now, we're in 23,
Wow.
so 5 years.
Wow.
Do you so sometimes like it you can get a little burned out from covering your hobby. Is that something that you as a game developer have had an issue with? Is that like how do you keep that spark alive to kind of keep like new games for sure are exciting, but just curious how that works for you guys.
Yeah, that can be tough because there are definitely times when it feels like, like I feel this responsibility to play games sometimes, right? Where like,
Yes.
it's like a
Yes.
new game comes out and I'm like, I have to play this because I have to be conversant in what this game does. Like,
Right.
even if it's like a huge game that isn't in a genre that I enjoy, I still feel this responsibility. Well, I'm supposed to know something about this game because even if it's in a different genre from the game that I'm working on, for instance, when we're talking about any game that we're working on, any feature we're working on, people will bring up other games as examples to sort of illustrate what they're talking about, because it's not like we've got this, the games industry is so new and it's so varied, and games are so different from each other.
Yes.
That there isn't really like a universally agreed upon language for every little detail of how a game can work. The way that we often talk to each other is saying, well, do it like Final Fantasy, do it like Crusader Kings, do it like Grand Theft Auto,
Right.
do it like Dave the Diver, like, and those are all extremely different games from each other, and chances are there are very few people who really love all four of those games. But as a game
Right.
developer, you kind of have to know what they all do, or at least know well enough that you can talk about them in a discussion. And so actually one of the reasons why I started my weird little live stream and YouTube channel is to motivate myself to play as many different games as possible, because
Okay.
I found that when I was on my own, I would keep grabbing games on Steam and being like, oh yeah, I should play this. Oh, I should play that. And then I never would, because it just sounded like work. And I would come home after a long day making games, and the last thing I would want to do is then go and play a game that maybe wasn't in a genre that I loved, or just wasn't the kind of game that I was usually into. That takes some emotional energy to play something that is not in your usual wheelhouse. And so for me, that it was really tough. But turns out, like, similar to you, I really like streaming and performing with other people, and I really like video. I was
Yes.
going to be a film major, and so I was like, okay, but what if I have a live stream? If I have a live stream, then I can motivate myself to play a huge variety of games, still
Right.
get all that research done without it feeling like a slog. Because even if I'm not super enjoying the game, I'm at least enjoying being with people and creating and making something, right? And so that's the excuse.
Right.
That's the way that I've found to solve that. But everyone solves it differently. I mean, I'm weird in that I have this like hobby live stream that I do. Most other game developers don't, and we all talk about that struggle. We've started actually doing like events at the office. We have a Friday co-op thing that we
Oh,
do in
cool.
the afternoon, where it's like, yeah, we'll like have people, it's largely like, it's like me, a couple designers and QA people mostly, but it's people from all over the studio. We got a few programmers in there, the occasional artist, and we'll get together in like new co-op games that have come out. We'll play them together because not all of us have like access to, like, some of us are like habitual co-op players where, we've just got a group of friends and we always
Yeah.
play with them. I'm not one of those people. I barely have any. I don't have time for friends. I've got 4 kids. And so, but this is an opportunity for me to play games like Redfall and like Zomboid and like, like all of these games that are, that are really, I can't, and unfortunately, GTFO, that's another one that we played that was really interesting. I never would have been able to get into that game on my own, but because I had this group of co-op players together, at the office, I was able to learn what GTFO does and what their co-op is like. And so yeah, that's another thing where it's like, it would have been really difficult for me to try to make my life work around playing co-op games just because it doesn't. But because I've got people,
Right.
kind of a support group at work, we help each other do it. So I don't know if that was a great answer to your question, but
No, it was. I was wondering. Yeah, I was wondering if like game developers were having kind of the same struggle at times, because it can definitely, when you take on your career, like was your hobby, and it makes sense. Do what you love. It could definitely be a struggle at times to to play or do certain things. And I know people are probably like what is he talking? You ever get paid to play and stuff like that? It happens. It just happens, It just happens. I don't know what else how else to explain it. It's like pretty much everyone goes through it. So I was wondering if game developers kind of went through the same struggle, and it sounds like you guys do.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And it's the solution to it. There isn't one good solution to it. It's a different solution for every game developer. But yeah. So it makes me wonder, like, actually, the people that I wonder about along those lines is people who work in restaurants. Do you stop liking food? Because that sounds really, really bad. like the people get like serious, like, like they're
hate
chefs.
The food that's at the restaurant, right? But maybe they won't hate food in general.
Yeah, it's like when I watch The Bear. I what I usually watch is not necessarily for how they run the restaurant. I watch what they eat when they're when they're not at the restaurant, and some of them, sometimes they actually would put on these really elaborate meals for each other, but sometimes they're just eating a Hot Pocket, because like, I just don't have the energy to try to make food, because making food is my job, and so they're just like, I'm just gonna have a Hot Pocket instead.
I didn't even think about that. Just make a hot, because that makes sense. You get even a little bit like turned off from cooking or something. I never thought about that, but I bet that happens too. Wow.
But yeah, I wish I had like a surefire solution to it, though, because that
oh no, and even for me myself, I don't have that problem as much as these days as I have in the past years. These days, sometimes I'm just gaming and I'm not working at all, and that's been happening a lot, like this year and the past year. And I've kind of fallen in love with all sorts of games and genres, and this is still going to be my favorite. It still is, playing these survival games like this, State of Decay. But it could definitely be a challenge. But it's just, gaming is just one of those things where, like you said, it gets so varied, and new things come out. You go, wow, that's super interesting, and you start diving into it. So that's really a big fun aspect to it. It's just kind of discovering all the new things, because technology is just getting so crazy these days.
So one of the things I do really like about working in the game industry, and I've been saying this from like my second year doing this. By the way, we've got another Wakey Plague Heart that we have to go deal with.
Okay.
But and it's probably our last Plague Heart, because I think we got about 14 minutes left. Is the fact that it's so varied. I mean, especially like early, like right now, I've been working on the same game for 2 years without us even really being able to announce anything about it, and that can be really, really slow. And there's people who have gotten it much worse than me, where it's like, people who worked on, say, like Duke Nukem Forever for 11 years of their life, and then left the company before the game ever even shipped. Like stuff like that. That could be really, like, spending so much time on something could be tough. But early on in my career, I was working at a work-for-hire studio that basically made games based on kids' movies, and they would put out a game in 6-9 months. I actually once I actually made a game in I think it was like 45 days, something like that.
Wow.
From zero to shipping a game on the Nintendo DS, like 45 days. It was crazy.
Wow.
But it meant that my job was really, really varied, because each game we made was extremely different from the last game. And I didn't, which on one hand was bad, because it meant that we were always bad at the thing we were doing, because we had just done something different. We couldn't build on our expertise. We were building franchises that we owned ourselves. We were just doing whatever game came down the pipe. But at the same time, it meant that my job just was constantly changing, and the problems I was solving were changing. And the fact that the game industry is so new and people keep coming up with brand new ideas no one's ever had before, it just means that your job never gets incredibly boring. And even working for the past couple of years on a game that where we haven't been able to even announce anything about it, even then.
I like how the name of the game is secret too.
Yeah, it's not really. Yeah, it's just for some reason I've just got this extra hyperactive habit of like, say as little as possible about your project, even if obviously everyone knows I'm working on State of Decay 3. It's just I can't say it. But even then, it's like, I'll be working on one feature one week, another feature the next week. And even just the different parts of a game are also different from each other. That could keep it interesting. And so, yeah, it's the kind of thing where this job, there's parts of it, that, especially when you're like, if you're working at a studio that does a lot of crunch, there's parts of it that can become a slog, but there's so many parts that aren't. And that can't be said of every job. There's so many jobs where after you've been doing it for a year, every part of it is a slog and it never changes. And the game industry is not that. And that's, I feel incredibly lucky to get to work at a place like that.
Yeah, that's something that I was mentioning. It's just it's if you think about where the games come just within the last 15 years, how much it's evolved. You go 20 and then it gets even more. It's just crazy when you were telling me that right there. I was just like, I can only imagine the types of projects you jumped from that were so different, and it probably made you like knowledgeable with a lot of things. But even as time goes on, I imagine a lot of what you're even learning is getting outdated as well, because it moves this quickly, right? At least I'm assuming.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. Like, one of the reasons why, like, I always feel like I have to play, new games as they come out.
Right.
It's because the industry is changing so fast. Like, the knowledge that I developed, 20 years ago when I was working on, like Samurai Jack and the Shadow of Aku, which is a very different game from State of Decay. Like, the information that I had in my head back then would not have helped me make State of Decay.
Right.
There are so many games I had to play between then and now to even just be qualified to work on a game like this. I had to play a whole bunch of Grand Theft Auto, and I had to play, a whole bunch of, like, say, Left 4 Dead, and I had to play, because while this game is very different from Grand Theft Auto and Left 4 Dead, you have to know what those games did. You have to know, whoa, thank you saved my life just there. Because our game, it's got different freak zombies from Left 4 Dead, but it's got freak zombies, and that was the thing that, not every piece of zombie, fiction had, that aspect of zombie lore in it. And, playing Left 4 Dead really sort of helps inform you. Oh, now I've got blood plague. Really helps inform, your work on stuff like that.